Dwarves, the stunty team that never was. They're kind of the first go-to bash team, and generally it's dwarves, you know, as a fantasy concept, you know, they embody the term hard as nails, you know, bar brawling and, you know, beating the shit out of each other, and in this instance beating the shit out of other races. So yeah, they are very good, right? So the general premise is that they have armor value, you know, around about 9, you know, which is quite high. Especially when it's like almost every player. Very, very good skills that orient around bashing, and everybody having thick skull, which is very good because not only do they have high armor value, but they also have a skill that makes it so that, oh, you've actually broke through their armor, good for you. Oh, you should have KO'd them, but instead it's a stun. Isn't that a shame? Fuck you. That's how this skill works, right? And, you know, it just makes it so that they're essentially a team that you're never going to win in a bashing fight. Even teams with, like, claws, right? Generally, you're still going to get bullshot one way or another, right? So, you know, not a fun time. They're not fun for bashing against, right? But to compensate for this, they have quite low movement allowance, very little in terms of agility, you know, in terms of skills and the actual stat. Although it's not completely barren, they do have, you know, average agility to below average agility. So yeah, it's kind of balanced. But we'll go positional by positional. You'll see what I mean. Longbeard, because apparently, you know, lineman is too edgy for the dwarves. This is your lineman. Even though they have tackle, thick skull, and block, which is a terrifying combination. Because essentially these bad boys ruin agility teams. Right? Elves fear them, right? And Amazons like literally get reduced to atoms when you play against Longbeards, right? Or a team that has them and uses them effectively, right? So for a lineman, fucking impressive, right? They're gonna mess up these agility teams, so be scared, right? Just stay away from them. But if you're playing as them, keep them. They're immensely good, right? Very good player. Expensive, but very fucking good, right? Blitzers. So these are Longbeards, but they've lost a skill. So why are they a separate thing, and why are they not the linemen? How are they supposed to be a more unique, better positional? Well, it's in the stats. Movement allowance 5, meaning they're a bit quicker, because by God, movement allowance 4 for the Longbeards is terrible. They're so slow. It's very hard to do bash things with that because you can't mark people as effectively. And they also have agility 3, as where the Longbeards had agility 2. So they are, I wouldn't say better, it depends on the situation, but they're definitely going to be needed, because otherwise you're not going to be able to move your cage more than like 2 spaces at a time. So definitely really good, and these are kind of the players you'd be doing like catch plays with if you're going to go down that road just to surprise the enemy. But I wouldn't recommend it. It's a bit stupid. But you know, they're good positional, just don't do stupid stuff with them. Runners, so this is you know, obviously they're not going to overthrow and catch the dwarves, you know, they don't have that agility. So I just have a runner, right? Show hands, thick skull, they pick up the ball, right, use the movement allowance 6 to waddle the way up the field, preferably caged by the fellow dwarves, and then they can just do a little touchdown, and everyone moves on with their lives. So things go, and it works. I have nothing really to say. It's perfectly acceptable. That's how they do things, right, and it works, so whatever, who cares. Troll Slayer, a quite interesting positional actually. Dauntless, block, and frenzy. So you can just push people off of the pitch. But not only that, with Dauntless, it means you can push big guys off the pitch. Like, I don't know, Chaos Warriors and stuff along them lines. So they are quite scary. And with, you know, Dauntless, it means that if you are going for, you know, pushing a bigger person off the pitch, you kind of have to worry, or you don't have to worry as much about putting yourself in a situation where, oh no, now you're in like negative dice, or you've got 2 red dice, so they choose the outcome, and that's it, you've turned over. You kind of you get to worry about that a little bit less, because like, you know, if it's a Chaos Warrior Oh no, it's a 1 versus 1. Oh, but Dauntless, so yeah, it's a 1 die. So you can worry about it a little less. But still, don't be an idiot. But they're a good positional. Good for surfing people off. Good for fighting big guys, you know. What's not to love, right? They're a good positional. Use them correctly. Don't be stupid, right? Death Roller. This is probably the worst positional of the game, right? And I mean that. And I know I've said before, oh, everyone says every big guy is the worst thing in the game. But this isn't the worst big guy only. This is probably the worst positional, right? Because unlike the peasants or the thralls, this is expensive. And it does quite little. Because, alright, the only really unique thing it has is Dirty Player off the bat. Which doesn't really make sense from like a lower perspective. I guess it's because they're running people over. But it just, like, why? Why would you do that when you've got the rest of the dwarves that can kick absolute ass? Alright, it's got higher, you know, fucking, what's it called? Strength. But, you know, they're dwarves, they can just mark people and kick ass. And if it goes wrong, then they have high armor value to tank it. And they have armor value 10, which, alright, a big guy, cool. You don't have to replace them because they're really expensive, you know, hopefully. But it's dwarves, they all have armor value 9, so it doesn't. That's not really a boon. It's not really an amazing thing. It's just kind of there. And yeah, they have a heap of skills, you know, like Juggernaut and tackle, break tackle, sorry. But it doesn't really do anything. It's just bloat. It's the most bloated big guy in the game for sure. So, and it's a secret weapon. So not only that, but it gets taken off the field. So it's expensive. Use it for 1 turn. It's bloat. It bloats your team value. It's just bloat. Alright, nothing more to say really. Overall as a team, apart from the one big guy that is pretty bad, the rest of the team's really good. Alright, definitely a team if you're new to Blood Bowl that's worth checking out once you've got the grasp of other teams. Right, they're kind of the most basic basher team. That I can think off the top of my head anyway. So once you've got the grasp of, like, you know, the Orcs or some other really basic team, maybe giving these guys a try would be, you know, pretty good. They're basic, bashy, and they're quite fun. Maybe the next one will be a bit more complex, but hopefully not as, you know, intimidating. Lizardmen. They're not only my top 3, but I would kind of agree with people who would say they're the best team in Blood Bowl. Like, they're definitely the most meta team. When people think of competitive Blood Bowl, I'd say, you know, this is kind of the team they think of. This is a team that is up there. They're in the upper echelons. Right? You'd have to be quite a spicy little dude to say that these aren't in, like, the top 8 of Blood Bowl 2. So, yeah. They're agile and bashy, and not in the sense of like humans where it's like, yeah, you know, jack of all trades, you know, not really good at any of the trades, but these are like really good at both, like exceptionally well. Somewhat. Some positionals are good at dodging and ball carrying, some are good at bashing. To have a positional that would be good at both would be the vampires, and we all know how that went, so let's not talk about it. These are just grouped up, so you can expose the weaknesses of both, but while they're both on the pitch at the same time, it's going to be difficult. So, you know, and to help you get them off the team, get you know, some of the players off the pitch, it's technically a stunty team, which that's quite impressive that a stunty team is in not only the top 3 of this list, because, you know, who the fuck am I, but like they're a team that many people would vouch for and say, yeah, no, this is a really, really good team. So yeah, let's just get right into it, I guess. Skinks. Alright, so these are the dexteritious? Quick. They're quick, they're agile, whatever. Definitely the ball handlers. And they're kind of the linemen. It's weird. It's like the goblins and the halflings. It's like you call them linemen, but they're just kind of the they're not going to do anything really. But in this team, like with many of the other teams, it's just kind of they're there to pick up the ball and let the big guys do the work for bashing and what have you. But you know, they're stunty, so you can use them to foul. So generally speaking, out of the stunty teams, this is probably the best stunty positional that I can think of anywhere. Like dodge, stunty, obviously, you know, dodging around players, you know, getting to the end zone, yada yada. Fairly standard stunty procedure. Movement allowance 8 is pretty damn high. Alright, that's very high. You know, that you can. They're just gonna dodge past all your players once they get within range of the end zone. So if they are within range of just touching down on you, getting a touchdown, then literally just fucking bum rush the cage, right? Because they're going. If you just like spread your guys out, they're just gonna dodge past them. It's not gonna work. Strength 2, obviously, that sucks, but strength in numbers, and they're generally quite expendable. Agility 3, again, standard stunted procedure, not amazing. But armor value 7 is actually pretty good for stunters. That's elf level, you know. So, you know, they're alright. Overall, nimble, alright little dudes, you know. Don't go with the strategy of just using journeymen because you kind of need them to pick up the ball and what have you. Overall, they're alright, pretty good. They're alright. Saurus, alright. This is your kind of lineman-ish. They're what you're going to use to beat the shit out of people. So I suppose to be a blitzer, if you want to think of it like that. They're definitely not going to be doing any form of ball carrying because agility 1, which good fucking riddance. Movement allowance 6, slow, but well, slowish, relatively alright. Strength 4, kind of the saving grace. It's like they're just meatheads, you know. The skinks, they run around, they get the balls to the side. These are just meatheads. You put them in a place and they kind of just dwarf it up, if you get what I mean. You can't really knock them down. You can't really break their armor. That's kind of the point of them. And obviously, you know, pushing forward so that they will bully you while you bully the skinks. So yeah, that's kind of the main shtick. No skills though. They're kind of made to be developed up a bit. But even with the base stats, the stats are pretty damn good for starting off. But definitely, you know, get blocked starting off because that's probably going to be the bane of your existence, is getting double downs. Kroxigors, the stats are like, what, literally the same? Apart from the fact they have 1 more strength point, which usually would mean they're quite terrible. But I've seen people say, and think myself, they're actually one of the better big guys. You know, you'd usually with this kind of team it'd be like, oh well, they literally just have 1 more strength point and you don't really need them because, you know, you've already got the guys with strength 4, so you don't really need them. But actually I've seen people bring these and say, vouch for them and say, yeah, no, they work pretty well, you know. Mighty blow off the gate, obviously, you know, that's pretty damn awesome. You know, prehensile tail kind of helps a bit, but it's kind of just gimmicky. It's like with the rat ogre, I think it was kind of just there to for the aesthetic of keeping the tail. But you know, thick skull, that works. That's, you know, pretty self-explanatory. You know, even though the armor value 9, they're probably not gonna like break armor anyway. It helps. Essentially, you know, they're just a big dude. You can have them on the line and beat the shit out of people, or keep them in the back and then use them to tie up a cage. It's really impressive how this team can be the bane of any team's existence. Apart from, like, you know, maybe Chaos and Chaos Dwarf that have the ability to just break armor on any Bashy team. These can mess with Bashy teams by, you know, using the Kroxigor to, you know, tie up a cage and then you can't really get rid of them. They can tie up the cage with the Sauruses anyway. They can just beat the shit out of all your players and then that's it, you're done. And then they can just use the Skinks to get to the side. And if you're an agility based team, then you're fucked as well because you can't really out agility the Skinks. And if you try to do plays where it's like, oh, I'm in the end zone, I'm near your end zone, I'm going to do a pass next turn or whatever, then the Skinks have such high movement allowance that they can literally just gang up on your catchers and just bully them. And if they don't knock them down, then you've got to deal with them potentially intercepting. So yeah, this team is overall, you know, as a team, I would say I wouldn't say scary, but they're and I wouldn't even say intimidating, but they're a challenge. They are one of the biggest obstacles you're going to come up against in a league format, or in a one-on-one format. Any format. If you're playing the game, right, these are going to be the ones where you're like, oh fuck, I've got to go against Lizardmen. Playing them, I'd say they're alright, because you're going to be replacing Skinks, but then again, they're relatively inexpensive, and you're not going to be replacing Sauruses or Kroxigors. If you do, you're a very unlucky boy, but you know, definitely get an airpo on these just in case that happens. But overall, just, you know, let the Skinks die, treat them like slightly better Bretonian peasants, and then yeah, just stunt on people, I guess.
Yes. Rizzo kicks.
I'm sure some of you have managed to deduce what the last team is, you know, the team that I've, you know, worked out to be the best team in the entirety of Blood Bowl 2. But let's get to this team first. You can moan about that decision when you've heard me ramble about it, but let's get this one done first. So hi elves, you know, obviously the second best team in Blood Bowl, and there's no more elves left, so I'm saying they are the best elf team. Main reason being is that they directly buff the statistic that usually counteracts elf player armor. You know, the entire point of this team is, you know, they have less movement allowance generally, but they have, you know, armor value essentially. It's only by 1 point, you know, so it's not amazing, but it's enough to make them more reliable as a team. So yeah, and that helps a lot with elf stuff. You know, that means they have less expenses because they're not having to replace as many players, and that means, you know, those star players, you can, while you don't have them off the gate, you know, like let's say the Wood Elves, you know, they have War Dancers, yeah, and they are absolutely amazing. But you can work them, you know, you can kill them essentially, and then that's it. War Dancers are dead because they only have armor value 7. With armor value 8, it reduces the risk, you know, a little bit, and that's enough to make them really, really good. You can build up players reliably without having to worry about, oh no, they're going to die. But we'll go positional by positional and you'll see what I mean exactly. Linemen, so these fairly standard stats, you know, 6 movement allowance, relatively slow, but it's whatever, that's kind of the caveat to this team. Agility 4, so, you know, elf shit is going to be had, and yeah, there's nothing really special to say. Although what I will say is general and agility means you could, if you could get a lineman with, you know, block, dodge, which is pretty damn good. You know, you could make essentially a little war dancer with armor value 8, and, you know, no leap. But you could also get leap. That's not out of the boundaries of existence. But a more interesting strategy, if you just want to use your lineman as fodder, you could get a cheeky boy to get both sneaky git and dirty player. So then you can just like absolutely dunk on enemy players. Like imagine if you're going up against a bashy team and you just dunk on their like chaos warrior or whatever with a stomp. Like that is quite spicy. So yeah, that's a possibility. The linemen in this team, pretty damn good. Throwers. So not really much to say in terms of statistics. They are literally the same as you know, linemen. You know, armor value 8, of course, pretty good, especially with the thrower, because you can make them into a really good star player. You know, you can give them accurate and stuff and not have to worry that, oh, they're going to die, and then it's just a wasted skill and waste of time and all that. A waste of team value for that one match. But you know, it's what they have is paths, etc. Now, usually I like to have sure hands off the get. You know, I'm a human player. I love me a bit of that sure hands action. But save throw, you know, alright, the agility 4, so it doesn't really matter. You can live without sure hands. If you fail that, you know, if you fail to pick up the ball, just re-roll it. If you fail that again, then cry. But with save throw, you mitigate the main issue with this team, which is the low movement allowance. Obviously, you know, safe throw doesn't give you bigger movement allowance, but it means that those throws you can make throws that are like a little bit more edgy. Obviously, they're going to play against your strengths as an elf team. They're going to be like, look, he's going to go for a pass, right? So I'll get, you know, his catchers in a pickle, and then I'll maybe put a guy in there for the interception just in case or something like that. But you don't have to worry about that as much because you have safe throw, and because you rely so heavily on the passes, it really helps. Safe throw on its own on any other team, it's not amazing, but for this team in particular, it helps them a lot. So just keep that in mind. They're not the best thrower in the game, but it's the best kind of possible thrower you could have for this kind of team. You know, without obviously giving them every skill in the game and everything, you know, within the realms of like meta and like within the realms of balancing. This is as balanced and good as it can get. Catcher, alright, well, there's not really much to say here. Movement I won't say it, which means they can, you know, scurry up the field and do edgy plays and kind of shit up the enemy. But also at the same time, they have armor value 7, which I'm actually kind of disappointed with. The humans have armor value 8 in this game, so I thought they would have done the same for the catchers and given them a little buff, but they didn't, so whatever. You know, but it's whatever, you know, the catchers, they're more... Unfortunately, you'll have to keep these as more expendable, which is a shame because these are the guys that are going to get all of the star player points. But, you know, it's whatever. You'll just have to live with it. Give them block, give them dodge, and keep in mind, they are strength 3. So they can hold their own a little bit, but put it this way. They're harder to knock down, but when they do get knocked down, it's armor value 7. So, you know, rest in reps. Blitzer. Movement element 7, so you know they're also able to do some spicy plays, you know, if you get them into the right position, you know. You can use them as a pseudo catcher, get them into position and then bait them out for the catcher and then throw it to the blitzer. Of course, they don't have catch, but you know, just keep it in mind, it's a thing you can do. Agility forward because elf, armor value 8 because you know, high elf. Nothing really much to say. I'm kind of shocked they don't have strength access, but then again, they're elves, that's not their thing. They're just a standard blitzer affair, and that's all this team really needs. You don't need some war dancer style thing, because you just don't need that for this team. It would be a detriment, because, well, the war dancers have armor value 7, obviously, but you don't need to have really aggressive players, you just need to hold down the fort, and you are the aggressor, really, for this team. You are going to be going forward. You're kind of a passive aggressor, if that makes sense. You're going to be putting players in position for the touchdown, but you're not going to be aggro, like, I'm going to, you know, murder your players and all this shit. No, you're just really putting catchers into position and making sure they don't get blasted, and then throwing the ball. You're not really, like, breaking lines and that. You can do that, but it's, you know, you don't have to. You can be a bit more indirect with your players, if that makes sense. Overall, as a team, they are the best elf team. That's with the, you know, the way I've worked things out, anyway. And I would say, yeah, they are better than the elf teams. And the main argument I'll probably get is that wood elves are better. But here's the thing, as I've said before for expenses, it's not about the one game you play against these. And maybe playing against wood elves is worse, alright? I'm not, you know, maybe it is, you are more likely to lose against wood elves and more likely to win a match as wood elves, but that's not the point. If you're playing like one game, alright, then maybe, yeah, fair enough. But you're not playing one game, usually. You're playing leagues. From fresh or from a set TV point. That's how it works. So, you're not playing one game. And let's say you have one game as wood elves, and you know, you go you win 3-0. But then you have to deal with, you've lost a handful of elves. One of them's one of your war dancers, and that means that not only do you have to replace them, which costs shitloads of money, and then you have journeymen because you can't afford all the things because you're prioritising your war dancers. That also means you can't level up your war dancers to do like really good shit. You know, have them, you know, they have blodge off the gate, but you know, give them other skills You know, like, I don't know, giving them Mighty Blow on a double or something. So that doesn't happen as much with this team, because maybe they are a little bit less effective in, you know, scoring. So maybe they only win, what, 2-0 or 1-0 or whatever. Maybe they even draw. Maybe they even lose a little bit more. But in a league, they're more likely to be built up. They're easier to maintain, and that is what matters. So yeah, I know people are going to be pissed at me for that, but it's food for thought. If you disagree with me, at least hopefully I've opened your eyes. Although for some people, I'm going to get my fucking eyes gouged out for what I'm about to say about the next team. So I can't delay it any longer. The number one team for Blood Bowl 2, as according to the kind of statistics I've made, is... So I can already tell the two lines of reasoning that people are going to put in the comments as to why I'm wrong. So let me try and deflect them first, and then I'll explain why I've actually put them at number one. So number one is that I'm just too new to understand why this team isn't, like, overpowered. Which I disagree with a little bit. I think they're a little bit broken, but I still think they're relatively balanced. You can beat a Chaos team, right, with an average team. You know, it won't be easy, but you can do it. I think it's, you know, it's reasonable to say. You just got to be a good coach. So on the coaching, dealing with situations, all that, right? So I think they're a little bit broken, but not majorly. There's just a small things that I wish were changed. Second line of reasoning I would encounter in the comments is probably just that they're really good at high TV but terrible at low TV, and I'm looking at them too generally. My response to that is that no, I'm pretty sure they're really, really good at low TV as well. Even though they're missing fundamental things, I still think what they have is majorly slept on, and people kind of need to wake up and see what the fuck they're doing a bit. But let me explain positional by positional. Beastmen. So these are the linemen of the group. Really standard stats, you know, but they have skill access to general strength and mutation. Strength I kind of see why, but mutation on not even on a double, it's just that is really, really, like, good for this team, because then you can make Beastmen have an extra arm, give them sure hands, which is a general skill, and you know, you can turn them into dodging masterminds a little bit. So mutation for these, if you're going to use them as like the runt of the little lineman, is really good. But the next positional, I think people have slept on a little bit for what they can do. Let me get to that. Chaos Warrior. These aren't slept on in the sense that people don't fear them. They fear them because, of course, they're strength lower. You know, they can get claws and mighty blow, like, because you can get both of those really easily because you don't need to roll doubles for either of them. But they also have access to general, and people would go, oh well, you know, block as well, obviously. No, not block. Sure hand. The thing I keep saying to people, and the usual rebuttal is usually me saying, hey, why don't people use Chaos Warriors to pick up the ball, and that way you can cage them, and even when they break the cage, it's going to be really difficult and improbable for them to actually knock down the ball carrier, even with like strip ball. It's going to be really, really difficult, because they have sure hands. That wouldn't work anyway. And my response, well, the responses usually are, yeah, but that's not what Chaos Warriors are used for. They're the ones that should be caging a Minotaur with the bow, so it's harder to break the cage. I think that's a lot of bollocks. Like, and of course, you know, they have one less movement allowance. I get that. That kind of sucks, because it's not just one, is it? That's one, like, every turn. Long story short, yeah, they're slower by a bit. Even though it's one, it's still a knock, right? But that still doesn't matter, because the main part of this team is caging and moving up, like, bit by bit, and beating the shit out of them until they have nothing left. Hence, Claw's Mighty Blow. So what I would say is Claw's Mighty Blow on 3, and then Sure Hands on the 4th. If you're getting 4 Chaos Warriors, which you bloody well should. And that's the problem with this, because they have agility 3, you know, they can do stupid things. Like, you can pass and catch with these, and they're agility 3, and they have strength 4. Why the fuck did they give these agility 3? It makes no sense to me. And I get that, you know, okay, it's only a 60-ish% chance, who gives a shit, but that's on par with humans. A human lineman can pass and catch like a Chaos Warrior can. Why are they not agility 2? Like the Nurgle's warriors. Like, why not like them? It makes more sense. I'm just so baffled by this choice. It's honestly astonishing. But the next positional kinda sucks. So let's get to them, and yeah. Minotaur. So I've heard that the Minotaur's redundant. They're alright. They're just another big guy with bloat, really. Wild Animal is one of the better ones actually for big guys. You can't be a strategic, really. Usually I've seen people say, oh, use your big guys to tie up the cage, and then they can't knock them down and that. You can't really do that with the big guys with Wild Animal, which sucks, but generally if you're just going to go around bashing the shit out of things, then it's fine, and it works. But overall, it's not as bad as like the Death Roller per se, but it's not quite like, you know, your lovable ogres and, you know, reliable big guys. I've seen people say he's a shit, and I kind of get why, but if you want to bring them, I'm not particularly against it, I guess. Overall as a team, the things that I have issue with are being changed in Blood Bowl 2020, which kind of reinforces in my mind that I'm kind of fucking right, which I don't get to say very often, because the thing about them having agility 3, they won't be able to pass anymore, because passing is going to be changed in Blood Bowl 2020, so you can't just pass whenever you want. Like, you have to have a certain skill or something like that. I was just saying professional. I'm pretty sure it is like that. You have to have like a certain skill or something like that. You have to be a certain role. So obviously Chaos Warriors won't be able to do that, I don't think. But what I do distinctly remember is that Claws is getting reworked, and their Claws and Mighty Blow won't stack. So the whole kind of meta at the moment with this team is getting majorly changed, and it affects this team the most. It's almost as if this team is fucking broken, like I'm saying. And again, it's only minorly broken. I do think these changes that affect everybody affect these the most, but enough to kind of put them a little bit lower, not major, right? And again, look, this is to end not only this section, but for the entirety of this Blood Bowl series, right? I am aware that I am new. I am aware that the NAF, I think it is, the people who do Blood Bowl stuff, I think it's the NAF, I'll have a look after this, if not I'll put the title on the screen. I'm aware they have rankings, and they have a tier system, free tier system and all that stuff. I'm aware of this, right? But I refuse to just look at it and blindly accept it. I wanted to do a series where I rank this, and I wanted to do this as objectively as possible with no predetermined things or outside influences influencing what the kind of most efficient thing is, because it's numbers, right? It's numbers and it's chance. So there is should really in kind of mathematical terms be a most efficient team, and in my mind I see it as the chaos. So again, that's why some decisions are quite controversial, like putting the Amazons so low and the Bretonnians and what have you. But at the same time, I hope that it's at the very least given some people a different way of looking at things. I know I've pissed some people off, which, don't worry, I'm going to do a reaction video to that, because by God, the treasure trove of comments I've had, not only on YouTube but on Reddit. Oh, spiciness. But in all seriousness, it's been a good series that I've wanted to do ever since I played Blood Bowl, because there's only been one other series like this, and it was on Blood Bowl Chaos Edition. And with, you know, Blood Bowl 2020 around the corner and Blood Bowl 3, I think Blood Bowl 2020 has just been released. But you know, it's been the perfect time to do it, and my thoughts have changed. Let me specify that. I don't think Amazons are that low on the list anymore. I think they're overrated a little bit, but I don't think they're like what are they putting as like the 5th, 4th worst team. I don't think that anymore. but I wanted to do this before I changed the list because I'd already started it. I think I'll turn this into, like, I don't know, maybe a yearly thing where I'll update it every year or something. But either way, that's whatever. Again, I just point out, I don't agree with all of this stuff anymore. I think the chaos thing, like, that's, I hope that people will see that and hopefully agree with me a little bit and see my reasoning. But everything else, just take with a grain of salt because I have kind of changed my opinions a bit. I still think Bretonnia is pretty shit. Like, they're a pretty crap team, but they're not impossible to play. I think every team in Blood Bowl is well balanced to an extent, and even the jokey teams like Halflings, you can get a win over, like, you know, mid-tier teams. So they're not terrible. They're just bad. So yeah, I hope that at the very least you've learned something about something throughout this experience, and I hope that you don't hate the video. If you do, if you at least have the decency to put in the comments, you know, something well constructed. Otherwise, you know, how dare I may put a funny reaction video up and you might be in it. But in all seriousness, I've enjoyed doing this, even though it's taken me a while to get all this out. It's done now. I hope people who've watched it enjoy it, and if you haven't, then fuck off.